I want to talk Georgia and Alabama, though. We got to do it here. And I know you got a big story in the Washington Post about this.
Mhm.
And look, I've long believed that in the short term, Kalen DeBoer, because of his skills and talents and track record with the current skills and talents of the roster, Jalen Milroe being very good, they're having a very young, talented sort of group of skill players around him, an offensive line that's going to be better this year, a running game that's going to be more creative this year. They have the explosive plays have been there for this Alabama team on offense. Defensively, they also have a bunch of guys that fly around at linebacker in particular. I thought that if there was going to be a degradation of the program post Saban under Kalen DeBoer, that it would take time. You could see an 11-1, 10-2, 10-2, 9-3 sort of thing under DeBoer, in which case 3 years from now we wake up and we go, what's happened to the program? I don't think that's going to happen in year one, and it doesn't appear to be that way so far. So to me, if I look at which defense is playing better, which quarterback is playing better, which offensive scheme do I trust to be creative and innovative and dynamic in this game, which offensive line is better? All of the check marks right now kind of go to Bama. They're playing at home. I don't like part. I don't like that I like all of those parts for Bama because I don't like the spot against Georgia. I don't like, you know what I mean? I don't like we just played one of our worst offensive games on the road. We're starting to come into the middle of the season where we start to unveil some things on offense. If you're Georgia, we got dropped from 1 to 2, and Kirby Smart's going to use all of this to push his team during a bye week. Georgia normally responds to this stuff very well. Those are two competing interests in my head. Where should I go with them? I just laid a lot on there. I got you.
Okay. I've prided myself my entire career of like, we're not supposed to be, I think media who pass themselves off as like these just sort of perpetual all-knowing wizards. No, we don't know is the answer. This is evenly matched. There are way too many variables at play to determine a constant, in my opinion. I could talk about Georgia and on offense that they've just either, well, in the case of Kentucky, sort of been made to be simplistic. I don't think they have a downfield threat like they used to. I tend to want to throw all of the Clemson game out.
Why? Because of Clemson?
Because of week one, because of Clemson, because of like after Kentucky, to think about the offensive side of that game, yes, I tend to want to look at it as an outlier. Does that make sense?
The Clemson second half.
The Clemson Georgia game in general, the offensive effect of what the offensive sort of explosion that Georgia had.
And really, it was only the second half. So
right. I'm always suspicious of Georgia's offense in general. You know, my post column was basically, it's like taking a very large educated audience who's very ignorant about the sport and sort of getting a very quick summation. So if you watch this show, I didn't tell you anything you didn't know, but I'm more, it's like, hey, this guy was 7 degrees in DC's Beltway, but doesn't, they only kind of follow Michigan. Like that's sort of my audience. But
the way I follow Michigan is like,
oh, we get a ton of those.
It's a bunch of Jane Costins.
Shout out to Jane. Walk into a post comment section. It's like being in a funhouse mirror. I think the best way to describe this to me is that there's old Alabama, which is Georgia, and that has to do with the whole Kirby Smart wants to play like it's 2012, put you in the slow cooker defense, There's new Alabama, which is actually Austin, Texas. Okay.
Yeah.
Post Kiffin, Sark, offensive minded. Now, what they share, obviously, is that they have immaculate Saban blueprints applied to big war chests, really good recruiting areas, probably of the best state, maybe the two best states in the country now. Florida has fallen off in recent years. Okay. So where's Alabama? What is the school in Tuscaloosa? It is okay to say we don't know yet. There are a lot of variables at play. The positive to me is still an off-season topic, which is the fact that the NIL group, who, at least what I was told, felt a little flat-footed after Saban left. Meaning they did not feel up to speed with some of the competing NIL interests of national title contenders. The Saban discount was a real thing. It was talked about for years. So to keep Milroe and most of the pieces there, massive advantage. DeBoer is a highly qualified successful coach at every level. This is not some redneck second place job. This is, if you look at jobs on like a blind item resume, it has resources, budgets, buildings, staffing, etc. that compare to no one else. Like Ohio State, Georgia, Bama, Texas, right?
There's a reason the two greatest dynasties in the history of the sport happened at the same place. It wasn't an accident.
Okay. And that actually touches more on the intangible buy-in of the place. All right. But right now, we don't know what Alabama is because, look, Saban himself, and I launched a podcast this week, Who Killed College Football, and it really seeks to answer what Saban said to Congress this spring, which is the sport I know no longer exists. Okay, so what do we do? What is this sport that we're doing right now? Alabama doesn't know either. They are, I think they're still in the, so in NASCAR, like you get behind your teammates and you're drafting, right? You get that added boost. And that's how I see Kalen DeBoer going into this game. There's no reason to have a referendum on Kalen DeBoer, lose or win after this. This is Saban's roster, and that's fine. It's a damn good roster. I think he's an Excelsior play caller. I think he's one of the best.
Yeah, he's great.
Like those Washington games were crazy good in how he positioned Penix and those guys, Romaduzzi
and the stuff. And you haven't seen half of the shit he wants to run so far on tape at Alabama.
This is okay. And this is the other thing I was getting at. This game, you're gonna be introduced to both teams. I'm sorry, Clemson. No,
yeah, I agree.
This is going to feature things you have not seen at all yet. It's like the season starts on Saturday. So I don't know who's going to win. I don't have a lean. I don't have a way of finding a matchup deficiency because I'm going to be honest. The stuff I don't feel great about, I don't even think they've shown yet, like Georgia downfield.
Right. No, I agree. And what's interesting, and to your point about like, hey, we don't know this stuff. They haven't shown us exactly who they are. It's going to be a great game that we should enjoy. The playoff hanging over all of this means that it could be one of three, maybe two matchups we see this year. But there's also a note that says that doesn't mean it's any less enjoyable for us who are fans watching games as a fan on the couch. It can still be completely, utterly enjoyable to learn as much as you can about both of these teams and to see them in a, like, what better? This is what's interesting. Like the NFL, every single week, every single game you play, even the best team against the worst team, is an example and a chance to test yourself for the playoffs. And almost every game is largely about the same. In college football, you get maybe 3 to 5 chances a year to test yourself if you think you're a championship caliber team. Look at Tennessee. We just got done talking about Tennessee. How many real chances are we going to understand what Tennessee really is? Ole Miss and Missouri are in the same boat. Missouri's 3 toughest games are A&M, Oklahoma, and Alabama. And Oklahoma and A&M don't look as good as maybe we thought. So you're going to get Bama as a test. How many times are you really going to learn as much as possible out of two teams? And this is one of those great moments where you don't have to make it. It doesn't have to be anything more than just a great football game that we enjoy. Enjoy Milroe. Enjoy Beck. Enjoy third down play calling. Enjoy it.
Don't build narrative. Don't build the narrative. Just take this game as a sort of platinum level data point. It's different than other games.
Yeah.
You if you're Georgia, this is sort of going to affect how Texas plays you more than you play Texas. If you are Alabama, you might be able to say the same thing for Tennessee, although I think it's a little bit different. Otherwise,
be present.
Yeah. Yes.
Be present.
And
just let it wash all over you.
Maybe you're going to hate what I'm about to say, not you, Braden, but the audience. Maybe you're going to hate it, but loser's not out. Not even close. Not like the loser's very much alive and fine. So sorry, I guess.
And here's the other, you. But you're not going to get any less out of the two teams, players or coaches or fans because they might play again. Like you're not, it doesn't, this whole like, oh, it removes value. Like the Texas Michigan game got, I think 10 million viewers and is like one of the most watched games of the year and would have been one of the most watched games of last year. Did the value of that game get reduced and people stop watching because there's a 12 team playoff? No, it didn't happen.
I'm interested with Georgia only because if Alabama has some particular kind of success on offense, how do Tennessee and Ole Miss adjust? Because like Georgia's slate's a little rougher, I guess. So if they take the loss here, it's Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Okay.
Georgia's got a much better path. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are more better teams taking notes on Georgia in the defensive response. And
More
the thing
good.
is, like we could talk about Kentucky and Ole Miss for a second, because a lot of
Well-
people want to say, all right, this is the first week that Ole Miss is going to be tested. I don't think they are. And I think that because of Tennessee. Kentucky's really good at throwing, what do the Brits say? Throw a spanner in the works, like break the machine on pro-style teams.
Georgia.
Exactly. Ole Miss is gonna like look at what Heupel's done to Mark Stoops. Ole Miss, I think, is gonna be fine.
I will say I went back and rewatched some of the Georgia Kentucky game just to watch the Kentucky defense and how they were communicating and applying some of their schemes. Like they were not scared over the top, and that was apparent with how they rolled up safeties. They had linebackers that were playing out and jumping on those those little bang routes, those little bang sevens and stuff. Like they were ready for it, and so we'll see.
What scares you about Georgia deep?
Well, nothing. I agree. So this is ultimately, I do think Kiffin is brilliant at playing geometry, right? He's brilliant at this. Timing and geometry is what he's so good at. And I think he'll be like, they have the personnel and the players to go out and attack Kentucky. We'll get to that in just a second, because I want to go sort of like, what are the things you actually want to learn from the platinum data point here, which is, I think, number one, what does Georgia have in its bag down the field with Carson Beck? I think that's absolutely something I want to ask. I want to know.
Make them play offense.
Right. I also think that's exactly what Kirby's going to do on defense to Jalen Milroe, which is what do we think Jalen Milroe's biggest problem is? Well, it's the intermediate rhythm passing game inside the pocket. Well, what does he do? He designs a scheme that contains the quarterback, keeps him in the pocket, and allows him to throw the football between 12 and 25 yards over the middle, and then let's see if he can do it. And I think he can. I think he will be able to, because Kalen DeBoer will put him in a position. But I'm curious what happens there between Kirby and Kalen DeBoer. So
I'm not saying this is like a foolproof thing, but if you look at the NFL talent for Georgia right now, and it replenishes yearly, they can get pressure with 4. They can put at least one of those corners by themselves.
Great
so
safety.
you can do exactly what you said, which is flush him and drop and make him beat you in the middle. I'm not saying the linebackers are bad. I'm just saying it's just NFL rankings.
It's also forcing Milroe to do the thing he does the least.
Yeah.
And that's just good football.
But I do think that conversely, Mo Lindquist and Kane Womack are looking at doing the exact same thing to Carson Beck, who I think is much more of an unknown quantity. I'm just not impressed yet. I feel like I always say this, and then like we have a year where like, yeah, Georgia kicked the shit out of TCU in a title game. I still call him Stetson Bennett Kia for a reason. Like I don't know, man. Like when Arch Manning was visiting Georgia and committed to Texas, did you really think he was going to look at what Kirby was doing on offense and commit to him over Sark? Give me a break.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. Look, we have one listener who thinks that we are just anti-Georgia offense, who's always always yelling at me on Twitter.
I am.
Oh, they evolved under Todd Monk and they changed. And I'm like, well,
and then he left.
And then he left. And then they hired the guy. Now, it doesn't mean Bobo's offense. I also thought Bobo got a bad rap when he left the first time. His last 3 offenses at Georgia were like number 2, number 6, and number 8 in like yards per play in the country. Like they were very good, very efficient.
Kirby wants it to be 2011 all the time. Like he wants that Alabama. It's like how musically I wish it was 1994. Like, you know what?
You do?
Kirby wants it to be 2011 Alabama, like slow cooker. We run the ball. It's Mark Ingram based offense. That's what he wants.
You still love Dave Matthews Band, is what I'm hearing. You still listen to
mind
DMB.
Dave. I don't mind Dave.
You still listen to DMB, man? Okay, all right.
I don't, but he's a nice fella.
Virginia's having a nice year. All right.